I should probably pull up the notes for today.
Yeah, that would help.
Yeah.
Here we are up on Twitch. Uh-oh. Where'd we go? Oh, there we are. Make sure everything's working properly. All right, got that. Got that. Got
Why
that.
are you not opening Chrome?
Chrome's been messing up on me a lot lately.
All right, it's open, but now I'm just seeing a white screen.
And then it comes back and says, "Oh, snap, something happened."
Yeah, it was doing that to me a lot this morning.
Stupid Chrome.
Right. Come on. Come on, Chrome.
As soon as we get it up and running, we will start the show. I didn't put too many news articles in because I figured us bitching about Nintendo might take up a good portion of the
Us bitch
segment.
about Nintendo? That would never happen.
Never.
God, when I read that they went online. I'll just save it.
Yeah,
I'll
don't
just save it.
Save it for the show.
All right, the docs is opening, so we can go ahead and start because I think
Okay.
I'm good to go.
All right, if you're good to go, I'm good to go.
Let's do it.
Notes here so I know what to say.
Do you want to do the SNES story first or the Secret of Mana?
Let's do Secret of Mana, then we'll do the Super Nintendo story. You can do the Secret of Mana, and then we'll both kind of launch into Nintendo.
Okay.
All right, here we
All right,
go.
I've got it pulled up, so I'm ready to go.
All right, here we go. This episode of Nerd Cave Retro is brought to you by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/nerdcave. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player.
You're listening to the Nerd Cave Network.
Greetings, programs, and welcome to episode 50 of the Nerd Cave Retro Show. My name is Jason Robbins.
And I'm Derek Diamond.
Did you think we'd ever get to episode 50?
It seems like just yesterday we were doing episode 1. It's crazy how time flies these days.
Yeah.
I'm sure it feels the same way for you, but as I've gotten older, it just seems like things go by so quicker. I mean, we were talking a little off air, baseball season for me is about to be over. We've got 3 home games left. It seems like yesterday we were just starting the season, so
Yeah.
This summer has just flown by.
Especially
It's crazy.
Wait till you get like in your upper 30s and like years just start to fly by, man. It's crazy. Like I still think it's like I'm still writing like whenever I do have to write a check, I'm still writing like 2012. Like what year is it?
But yeah, it's awesome that we've made it to episode 50, and thank you to all the listeners for supporting us, writing reviews,
Absolutely,
and all that fun stuff. Because there would be no Nerd Cave Retro if not for the listeners.
Yeah, I forgot to look up see if we had any new reviews for this week. I did want to tell everybody that we have the biggest listener base that I could have possibly asked for this show. Like, I've done shows in the past that do relatively well, but this one has just like, I can't believe the download numbers that we get. And I'm like, what are we doing right? I don't understand. So there's a lot of you out there listening. I'm glad you enjoy the show. Nobody's given us really any negative feedback so far. But I'm pretty sure it's coming eventually. The higher our numbers get, but I want to get those numbers even higher because I'm kind of like getting greedy. at this point. So anybody listening, if you enjoy the show, just take like 10 seconds out of your day and head over to, especially places like iTunes. If you could head over to iTunes and give us a review, and it doesn't have to be long, just like a 5 or 4-star review, or hell, if you don't like the show and you got time to waste, go give us a 1-star review and tell us you hate us. But just go over there and do something. Give us a review, and that puts us up higher in the rankings. And that's for everywhere. I mean, that's like, you can do it for Stitcher, for Overcast, Downcast, pretty much anywhere you can download the show at, you can leave a review. So please, if you like the show, just head on over and do that for us. That would be awesome.
Absolutely.
But I don't know, just before we go into anything, I don't know if anybody is interested, but the Pop Culture Palette this last week, we had a pretty interesting show that came out.
Yes, you guys did.
This week, because we promised our Patreon listeners that we would do, quote, drunk trivia. So we were actually in the process of getting drunk while we recorded that episode. So you can listen to episode, I think it's 152. It's the current episode of Pop Culture Palette where we're drinking the entire episode. And then if you want to throw us $1 on the Patreon, you can actually get the drunk trivia show. And I haven't listened back to it yet. I'm kind of scared. So I don't know what to think about it. So if you're interested in listening to us get stupid and answer trivia, then please go do that.
Yeah, it was interesting. You can definitely tell the progression from the beginning of the episode to the end, especially
God.
Wally. He was so funny.
By the end of the episode, we were done. Because I'm not a drinker, man. Like, the last time I think I drank was my birthday in May. So I drink like maybe twice a year, and it doesn't take much. So, yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway,
it's good stuff, though.
Let's go ahead and move into our news for this week.
Our first story comes from Kotaku.com, and I was very excited when I found this headline. Secret of Mana remake announced for PS4, Vita, and Steam. Square Enix is remaking Secret of Mana. The beloved role-playing game will be released in North America on February 15th, 2018. In August 1993, the game was originally released as Seiken Densetsu 2 in Japan. Hopefully I got that pronunciation correct. On the Super Famicom SNES, but sold outside of Japan as Secret of Mana. Earlier this summer, a Mana collection with Final Fantasy Adventure, Secret of Mana, and Seiken Densetsu 3 was released in Japan for the Switch. Now, the second game in the series is heading to current PlayStation hardware and Steam. It's a full remake with full voice, new musical arrangements, and other new elements like upgraded gameplay. It will also have local multiplayer on all platforms. And there's an update. An original version of this article said that the game would have online multiplayer, but that's not the case. And there are some screenshots that are below, and there was also a video. I don't know if it's still on there. I'm not. Yeah, there is a video still on here. Well, before I give my thoughts, I wanted to get yours because I know you. I don't think you've played this game before.
I never did, but if I got a chance to play it, I would like to because. It looks interesting. The graphics are definitely up my alley.
Yeah, I was surprised, at the level that it was remade. I was thinking, it'll be just the game, an SNES port, but with brighter graphics and maybe remastered music. But no, it's 2D. It's what I call that 2D, 3D hybrid.
Yeah.
Where the viewpoint of the game looks the same. But the graphics are obviously much improved. I think having voice acting is very interesting. And this will be kind of a segue into our next story. But, this is one of my favorite RPGs for the SNES. And it was one that I was really looking forward to playing on the SNES Classic. But with this remake coming out, I think this might actually add a new dimension to the game. Looking at it, there are several scenes that I recognize. But just seeing them with updated graphics and watching the video with the voice acting, I think could make this game like a whole new experience for those who have played it before.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely looks interesting. Like you said, I've never played this game. I didn't even know about it back in the day. It kind of slipped me by. So I would be interested in playing this because it looks like I like the way the graphics have been updated. Like, don't get me wrong, I've seen screenshots of the original when we talked about it a couple of months ago, and the graphics for the RPGs and most of the RPGs on the Super Nintendo were always great back in the day.
Hmm.
You know, bright colors. The dungeons always looked nice. The character designs, everything was always good. But to see these pictures of the updated graphics, it just looks so good.
It really does. And it's one of those games that, it's announced for February 2018. And like, why can't this come out in like a month? Because I would absolutely love to play it. And there's a limited edition bundle in Japan that looks like it comes with the game, a soundtrack, and little figures of the three main characters. But it says no word yet if the North American version will have a limited edition. If it does, I'll probably get it just because it looks like it comes with a book as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say
That looks really cool. And the soundtrack is one of my favorites out of any SNES game. There are songs that make you feel sad, feel happy, songs that'll give you chills. It gives so many different emotional responses. And I would put the soundtrack, up there with any SNES game. So I'm really excited to play this. If the North American version, if we don't get a limited edition, I'm still going to get the regular game. If the limited edition comes out, I'll definitely get it.
This limited
I'm really
edition
excited for it.
looks pretty beefy. I mean, if it comes out in the States, it looks like this would be the version to pick up. Like, just that book, the book itself looks really nice. Like, it looks like it's some kind of maybe like a book, like artwork book or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah,
It
that
looks to be
really
about
nice.
the same size as the Zelda books that were released not too long ago. There
Yeah.
was a Hyrule Historia book that kind of went through the history of the games, and then they did one solely with artwork. If I were to guess, I would agree with you and say that it will be artwork. But I'd still love to see it because, just the cover still, it's one of those things that as soon as you look at it, you know what it is with the giant tree and, the three main characters standing underneath it. And the tree actually plays a very important part in the game for those who have not played it. But
like
I'm
you
excited
said-
for it. I'll definitely get this when it comes out.
But this is on the Super Nintendo Classic, right?
Yes.
Speaking of the Super Nintendo Classic,
Ah,
so Nintendo bungled it yet again. And actually, Brian C., one of our listeners, texted me the other day and said, "Hey, you can go pick up a pre-order right now at GameStop for a Super Nintendo." And I'm like, I didn't even know. I was at work, and on top of that, I just dropped a good bit of money to get a new car because my
yeah.
my truck exploded a few weeks ago. So I'm kind of broke right now for the next couple of weeks, and I wasn't even expecting them to do pre-orders until at least September. So I'm
Yeah.
just crap out of luck. I didn't even try. So
I did.
I know you did, and I know you were originally, when it was accidentally sent out by Walmart, you had gotten one, and now you're crap out of luck. So there's a lot of irritated people at Nintendo right now, and rightfully so, because one, they didn't let anybody know what was happening. Two, unless you have a blood bond with or know someone that works at GameStop or Best Buy or whatever, you didn't even know what was happening. So
Yeah.
what are we supposed to do, Nintendo? I mean, do you hate us? Like, what's going on? Somebody doesn't know what they're doing over there.
Yeah, it was interesting because I looked. I was just randomly on Facebook one morning and it said SNES Classic pre-orders are now available. So I'm like, oh crap. So first thing I do is I go to Best Buy. I go to their website. It says not available. So I was like, oh, here we go again. I've seen this movie before. Then I go to Target. They don't have anything. Go to Amazon. They don't have anything. Even go to Toys R Us. They don't have anything, which I will say Toys R Us released a statement saying that they were not going to do pre-orders, even though an article I read said that they were. Toys R Us themselves came out and said, if you want one, you've got to come to the store the day it's released and get one. So it was very interesting, to say the least. I wasn't really surprised, because I thought that I might have like just missed the mark to get one, because the post I had read was made like an hour beforehand before I actually read it. So I was like, oh, well, maybe they just released them. But then I found out, oh, it was in the middle of the night. My thing is, why couldn't you do, like, say you're gonna do pre-orders starting September 1st, which is on a Friday.
Which would have made more
you could
sense.
You could even that Monday say, hey, we're going to start doing pre-orders this Friday, September 1st at whatever time. Even if they had announced midnight, I would have stayed up to get one. You can go to Amazon, you can go to Target, Walmart, all these places.
Yeah.
But they just kind of did it
Without any fanfare or anything.
And I don't really understand why.
I don't either. Oh, go ahead.
The only thing that I will say is that they claim that they are going to release more. So my plan is I'm going to actually go to a store on the day that it comes out, and I'm going to try to get one. If it turns out they're like, oh, well, there's only 4 in stock or 8 in stock, then that's going to, I'm not going to say it's going to make me completely lose faith in Nintendo, but it's really going to hurt.
That's why I'm not even going to try this time around. I mean, the scalpers have already gotten their claws into it.
Yeah.
Unless you have a bond, some sort of, friendship or family member or whatever that works at some retail store, you're not going to get one unless you get there. Like, even at Target, they open up at like 9 in the morning. You're going to need to be there at the night before to get in line to get your little ticket to get up there and get one. I'm sorry, Nintendo. I'm 40 freaking years old. I'm not going to go sit outside of a Target, at midnight to get your machine. You know why? Because I have a working Super Nintendo on the shelf behind me, and I can go to a flea market and get all these games. It might cost me a little more than $80, but you know what? I don't have to have you playing with my emotions in order for it to happen.
Yeah.
And that's what I feel like Nintendo does, is they're not doing any favors for themselves by, and I know people say they're not doing this, but creating like artificial scarcity and the things that they're known for doing the past, 30 something years, creating this, frenzy for their products. And they can say all day that this is not what's happening, but that's what's happening. That's what they're known for doing. That's been their business model for 40 years now, or almost 40 years. And it doesn't work anymore. It pisses people off. And
it's not 1996. It's 2017. It's a completely different time.
You're not going to gain any new customers that way either, because I can guarantee you, millennials like yourself and younger don't want to have to wait for things. And they don't, if you can't get one, then it's just kind of like, whatever. People don't search things out and wait for things anymore. I think that's kind of a dying thing with, I'm kind of that weird generation gap between Gen Xers and millennials. So I think I'm like the last dying breath of that, where people will go and wait for things. It's not that world anymore. And they're not going to create new customers by doing that. It's not going to happen. And they need to just stop doing that. Just stop it, Nintendo. Stop.
Yeah. I mean, whenever it comes out, I'll try to get one. But if I can't, then it'll just be kind of a whatever thing. If I eventually get one then that's great. Because I do really want to play Star Fox 2.
Well, I do too.
That would be my main reason for getting it.
Well, same
would be
here.
to play that game.
You know, I'm not gonna break my neck to get one. I'll keep my eye out for one if I happen to be in Target or Best Buy and just happen to roll across like one that was forgotten about or something. You know, somebody stuck it behind a vacuum cleaner or something to come back and get it later, and I happen to find it. I'll buy it. Sure, I'll buy it, but I'm not gonna go out of my way to hunt one down. Not when I have an original one sitting on the shelf behind me, and I can go get any of the games I want for it.
Yeah.
So screw you, Nintendo.
I just don't get it. I mean, I really don't. Like it makes no logical sense to do that.
It doesn't. And
to do what they've been doing.
I don't get why they still do that to this day. But on some happier notes, let's go ahead and move into this month in video game history. And this rounds out August for us, since it's the last show of the month. In 1987, on August 22nd, Nintendo releases The Legend of Zelda in America and Europe, the first of one of their longest running and most popular series of games.
I think I've heard of this series before.
Yeah, I kind of heard about it.
It had a couple of sequels, didn't it?
Yeah. Didn't it come out on like the Intellivision or something like that?
Yeah, the Game Boy game was pretty good.
Yeah, it was.
But no, in all seriousness, I mean, it's my favorite franchise of all time.
Yeah.
Like it's one of my most proud accomplishments in like me as a gamer was when I finally beat the original Zelda game. They had done a re-release for Game Boy, and that was where I finally beat it. It took a long time, but when I beat Ganon and saved Zelda, it was one of those where I put my Game Boy down and I was just like, I own the world.
I'll be honest, I have to turn in a little bit of my retro gaming geek card. I never finished the original Legend of Zelda. I had it, I played the crap out of it, but I could never finish it. And then once Zelda 2 came out, I played it, and then I was kind of like, blech, I don't want to play this anymore, until Link to the Past came out and totally redeemed it on Super Nintendo. And by then, I just never went back and finished it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a long game.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's understandable. But on August 28th in 1987, Konami releases Castlevania II Simon's Quest. It is the second Castlevania title released for the NES following the original Castlevania. Now, I recently just played Castlevania 1 for the first time, and obviously I haven't touched Castlevania 2. But I like the first one.
Oh,
and
the first one's great.
I look forward to playing it more.
The second one, it's way too much of a departure. There's a lot more involved, a lot more RPG elements, and it's really hard to navigate because it's almost kind of like the difference between Legend of Zelda and Legend of Zelda 2. You know, like it was just a complete 180. That was kind of the same thing between Castlevania 1 and 2. Not saying it's a bad game, but there's just a lot of elements in part 2 that just got on my nerves. And actually part 2 was the one I played first. And I was like, man, this is not good. And because I got it because it was in Nintendo Power, and I was really interested in playing it, and I didn't like it. And it took me a while, like a year or two, before I actually went and played Castlevania, the first one, and then I was like, oh, this is what it's supposed to be like.
Yeah. Sweet.
And on 1988, in August, Sega releases Altered Beast, later ported to the Mega Drive Genesis, where it was packaged with the console in North America and Europe. I never played Altered Beast, but I used to see the advertisements for it all the time in the video game magazines at the time. Because that was
same here.
That was the pack-in game with the Genesis before Sonic became the Sega mascot.
Yeah, I know the title of the game, and I've seen the screen caps. I recognize it, but I never played it.
Yeah, I did.
But I definitely know of it. In 1989, in August, Nintendo of America introduces Enix's Dragon Warrior franchise to North America. I feel like we've talked about Dragon Warrior
Yeah,
before.
we talked about this quite a few times. It goes by a different
Yeah.
name in Japan. I think it's Dragon Quest in Japan, but there's
Yes,
a lot of
it
games
is.
in this franchise. And I actually have the very first Dragon Warrior for Nintendo, and I want to do a thorough review of it. I've been wanting to do it for about 2 years now, but I haven't had the time to really get into the game and play it. I did play it a lot when I was a kid, but I know it takes a lot to kind of get into it. Like even more so than like Legend of Zelda. It's a long game. It's a straight up like JRPG type with like encounters and all that kind of stuff. And you know, it's a hardcore RPG, so it'll take a lot for me to kind of get into it. But when I do, I want to do a very thorough review of it.
Yeah.
And August 26th of 1989, Nintendo releases the Zelda Game & Watch. Did you ever have any of those, the Game & Watches?
They released some Game & Watch games for the Game Boy that I played, but never the Zelda one. Like, I've known of the Zelda Game & Watch game, but I've never had the opportunity to play it.
My brother sent me a picture. My brother is, they do a lot of stuff. They have an antique shop, and he does a lot
Right.
of hunting for just different antiques and things like that. But he does most of like video game stuff and music. And he'll send me pictures of stuff that he runs across. And he came across a Game & Watch not too long ago, but I can't remember which one it was. And I think it might have been for like Donkey Kong or something like that. And he was asking me because he had never heard of them before. And I told him, I was like, this was kind of the precursor to the Game Boy. So if you find one in really good condition, pick it up because you can really make a turnaround on those.
Yeah. Yeah, I've played very little of the Game & Watch games, but I mean they're pretty fun.
Yeah. If you can find them, pick them up because especially people that don't know what they are, they're just going to do nothing but rise in value.
Yeah. On August 27th, 1992, Nintendo releases Super Mario Kart, the first in the Mario Kart series, creating the mascot go-kart subgenre of racing games. I think this is honestly one of the most important video games of all time because look how many sequels that they've had since then. Look how many spin-offs they've had. They've had a Crash Bandicoot racing game. They had a Sega racing game. You know, it inspired a whole genre. It really, like it says in the description, it created a genre of video games.
Oh, yeah.
So
Definitely.
Mario Kart's great.
I can't believe that came out in 92. I thought it was later than that.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. In 1993, August 6th, Square releases Secret of Mana for the SNES, the second in a series of action role-playing games, the first technically being Final Fantasy Adventure for the Game Boy in 1991. Definitely added this in to kind of go with your news story for tonight. And wow, 1993, that was 24 years ago. We're coming up on 25 years, man, on some of this stuff. And like, that just blows my mind because back at this time, back then, 92, 93, you think 25 years before, that was in the 60s. And like, that stuff seemed old then, you know? I'm like, wow, do these kids think that this stuff is old? You know?
Yeah, it's crazy because some of our at work, some of our production staff members are in like their late teens, early 20s, and I'm like, this stuff came out before you guys were even born. You know, I was playing this game when I was a kid, and you weren't even in existence yet.
We're old, Derek. We're getting old.
We are. We are. I definitely feel old.
Oh, boy.
I have the energy of a man twice my age.
Me too. 3 times my age. Sometimes I think I'm dead. Let's go ahead and talk about books right now before we move into our review for the night.
Yeah. So for you, the listeners of the Nerd Cave Retro podcast, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. I haven't had much time to really listen to anything over the last week or so, but I did just start Superpowers, which is a original superhero story by an author named Drew Hayes
Hmm.
that I recently got to interview on my podcast. So you can check out. I think it's episode 149, 148 or 149 of the Derek Diamond Experience, and he has a lot of good books. So I used a credit to get Superpowered Year One. I'll let everybody know what I think of it as I progress through the book. It's actually kind of a long one. I think it's like 26 or 27 hours long.
Oh wow,
So yeah, so it's going to be a long one. So
Lord
it
of the
might be
Rings or what?
it might be a while before I give my full review of it.
Wow, I haven't been listening to anything lately. It's just been all podcasts lately for me.
Yeah. But to download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/nerdcave. Again, that's audibletrial.com/nerdcave for your free audiobook.
And this week we're going to be playing. That's right, we're going to be talking about Resident Evil 2 tonight. More specifically, the N64 version. I got asked on Facebook the other day if we were going to be doing the PlayStation or the Nintendo version, and I have the N64 version. That's the one I've played the most over my lifetime. I have played the PlayStation version, and funny story about that. When this game first came out, I was staying for the weekend at a friend of mine's house, his parents' house, and he had just gotten a PlayStation for I think for his birthday or Christmas, so it was something like that. So he didn't have the little memory card. He didn't have any memory cards for it, but we went to this place called Third Avenue Software and rented this game because we wanted to play it so badly. And Third Avenue Software was awesome back in the day. It was the one like little mom and pop rental shop in our town where you could actually go and rent like movies, laser discs, video games. You could actually rent computer games and software from there. It was the only place I've ever seen that you could rent computer software from. It was weird.
It's an interesting concept.
Yeah, and I didn't know you could do that, but it must have been like bootleg software or something. I don't know how they got away with doing that. But yeah, we rented this game and we literally stayed up all night playing this game, going back and forth, just playing the game through. And we never finished it, but I remember we got really close to the very end of the game. I don't remember exactly where we were at. I do remember distinctly I had fallen asleep at one point and woke up and my friend was fighting the big alligator down in the sewer. And I know that's kind of close to the end of the game, but I don't remember actually finishing the game. We had to finish it in one sitting because we didn't have any way to save the game, which sucks. I actually looked up getting a PlayStation over the weekend just to kind of price them and see what they're going for nowadays. And you can get them for relatively cheap. And I'd like to get one because I really would like to play this for the PlayStation 1 because you have the dual analog sticks with the PlayStation. Yeah. But with Nintendo, all they had was the one analog stick, which makes this game really hard to play. And you get used to it after a while. Like I was really good at playing this game back in the 90s when it first came out, when I had it for Nintendo 64. But I've been playing it a lot over the last few weeks. And it's still like every time I go to play it after not playing it for a few days, I come back to it. It still takes me a while to kind of get back into the, learning the controls again. But before
Yeah.
I get into all that, let me tell you a little bit about the game. Resident Evil 2, known in Japan as Biohazard 2, is a 1998 survival horror video game originally released for the PlayStation. Developed by Capcom as the second installment in the Resident Evil series, its story takes place 2 months after the events of the first game, Resident Evil. It is set in Raccoon City, an American community whose residents have been transformed into zombies by the T-virus, a biological weapon developed by the pharmaceutical company Umbrella. In their escape from the city, the two protagonists, Leon S. Kennedy and Claire Redfield, encounter other survivors and are confronted by William Birkin, the mutated creator of the even more powerful weaponized pathogen, the G-virus. And the one thing I always thought was so cool about this game was you had the two different players. You had Leon and Claire. So no matter who you pick to play, you always go back and you play the second part of the game from the other character's perspective. And everything you do in the first game, whoever you played, affects things in the second game. So that was a completely new concept back then.
Wow.
And it still holds up. Like, you don't hear very many games doing that these days.
Mm-mm.
I mean, can you think of one? I can't.
Mm-mm. It reminds me of a concept that Rare was going to do with Banjo-Kazooie and its sequel, like events from Game 1 would influence Game 2, but they didn't. I don't know if it was technology, but they never really quite pulled it off.
Well, even Mass Effect sort of kind of does that with, you play the first
That's
game,
true.
and then you take your save into the second game, and you take that save at the end of the second game into the third game, so you kind of keep your character going through everything. But this is basically the same story happening, like, for two different people, the same time frame. So, like, if you're one character and you go into one area and you pick up a box of bullets, well, when you go into your second game and play the other person, that box of bullets won't be there. So you have to strategically leave things for the second time you go through the game, or you're not going to have any weapons or, first aid spray and things like that. And you can leave things in these chests that will transfer over to the other game too. So it's just really cool the way it works. And, there's different parts where these two characters meet up in the game. Like Claire and Leon both meet up in certain spots inside the police station. And, it's really cool. Like, have you ever played this game, Derek?
I've actually not fully played through any Resident Evil game. The only one that I have played is when they remade the original for the GameCube.
Yeah.
And I briefly played through it, but I just never really got into it.
Well,
but I do like the concept of the franchise.
I really do think you need to give this game a try. And if you're looking for a fast-paced game, this ain't it. This is a very slowly paced game with lots of puzzles. And each puzzle leads to the next puzzle, and you find different keys. Like the bulk of the game takes place, and you start the game out as Leon. You're coming into the city, and basically everything's gone to shit. And the car crashes that you and Claire are in. So you basically split up at the very beginning of the game, and you can play either Leon or Claire, and you have to make your way to the police station, which there's kind of a crappy save feature in the game where you actually have to find typewriters in the game, but you also have to find ink ribbons in the game to be able to save your game. So like the whole beginning of the game, you can't even save anything until you get to the police station, which is where the bulk of the game is played. And this has got to be the biggest damn police station I've ever seen in my life. Like, who built this police station? Because not only is it like the size of a city, but like, who made all these puzzles where like, like these giant moving pieces, and like, it's just crazy. Like, I'm playing this game the past week or so, and I'm like, who built this place? Like, who thought of this shit? Like, why is he hiding things? And like, why, but then I would just like, it's just a game. Just go with the flow. But the thing I noticed about this game, and it really brought back a lot of memories for me, is when you play this game, play it with headphones. Because the greatest part about this game is it's got some good music to it, that's used sparingly to create atmosphere. But
Yeah.
just the sound design on this game is still outdoes any game I've heard since. Everything from when you're walking through areas, like your footsteps are different, whether you're walking on carpet or grass or metal stairs, or you're walking through a hallway and like you hear the zombies, or a licker coming around the corner, or if you walk outside and you just hear like like wind and like ambient night noise, but you hear like zombies moaning off in the distance, and it just creates this like you're in this city, but it's just so claustrophobic feeling in this game.
Yeah.
And I can't like, you have to play it with headphones and just experience it, and in the best sound possible, because the sound design in this game is still top notch. Like, I can't praise it enough.
That's awesome. Like, I've never really thought about that much detail when it comes to ambient background noise for a video game. That sounds amazing.
Oh, it totally creates the atmosphere for this game. And the graphics still hold up pretty well. The character models, like the zombies, they look a little blockish, like that kind of.
A lot of the N64 games look like that.
But I mean, it's not just that; it's that whole era of video games where it's like we're still kind of moving into the 3D environment, but the environment looks great, and like the character models for like Leon and Claire look great. Especially like the cutscenes and stuff are like top notch, like CGI for the day. But like the zombies, they could have been a little more detailed. And that's why I wish that they would go back and redo this game and really update the graphics for it. And they wouldn't have to do much else. It's mostly just the graphics that need to be updated, because the sound design is still there. The voice acting it's okay. I mean, it's 90s video game voice acting. It's okay, but you can look past it because of how good the game actually is. But you go through the game, and since I'm an old man, I play it on easy, so I have the most amount of bullets, because if you play this on normal, the zombies don't go down easily. You will waste a lot of ammunition in this game, because it's very hard to run like through the zombies, because they lash out and grab you and stuff like that. But you do spend a lot of time searching for new weapons and ammunition, things like that. And let me tell you, there's still a lot of good jump scares in this game too. Like, there's parts where you're walking through and arms will just bust out of the wall and grab you, and like I'm just like, oh god. But it still holds up. Like, and this is the game that got me into the Resident Evil series, because I didn't play the first one till after I played this one. And I never even heard of the first one because this is right about the time I started to get back into video games kind of slowly. And I remember I had heard friends talking about this game, and that's why I was excited about playing it, because, I came from the world of, Legend of Zelda, Super Mario, and the only kind of horror games we ever had up until that point were like Splatterhouse and Friday the 13th and things like that. We didn't have anything like this. Was a whole different genre of this was survival horror. This was like you could get immersed in this story and the gameplay, because the story of this game is so good. You're just you're going through the whole game, and you're finding like different notes from people. Like you're going through offices and you're looking for like notes and things, and like you get the story as you go along of what happened in this town, and it directly relates to what happened in Resident Evil 1. So you're kind of getting the story of Resident Evil 1 as you go through this game. And it's, you know, the further you get into this game, then you're fighting like the nemesis. I think it's the nemesis at the end of this game, which he's kind of tough to take down. It's been a while since I've been to him, but and you know, I'll be honest, I haven't finished this game in the last few weeks. I'm still only about maybe 3/4 through it, but I did finish this game a lot when I was younger. I probably completed this game all the way through roughly, I'd say, over 10 times, just going through this game completely, like playing Leon and then going through as Claire, and then you go through again trying to, you know, play it a little bit differently. And there's also, I wanted to talk about this too. There was something called Tofu, where if you beat the game so many times with Leon and Claire, you could play as a character called Tofu, and I never could do that. And I can't really find it here. If I find it before we get done here, I'll talk about it a little bit. I meant to look that up earlier, but I forgot to look it up. Was there anything you wanted to ask?
One thing I did want to bring up, you mentioned that you wish they would remake this game. Well, I remember reading, you know, a while back that there is a Resident Evil 2 remake in the works.
Really?
This is from, let's see, express.co.uk. Resident Evil 2 remake Capcom release date news as Allison Court provides new update. Let's see. Resident Evil 2 remake was officially announced as a real project by Capcom last year, but has since been shrouded in mystery. The video, which unveiled the project, provided the barest details explaining that a remake had been approved by Capcom, although no information on how long it had been in development was given. So it says here, one of the developers warned that an update on the remake would take a while, and now it appears we might have finally got one. It just says that a remade version of the game will be out from Capcom soon. Now, it says next year is the 20-year anniversary of the original game, so we could be getting it next year.
That's awesome.
It'd be a heck of a way to celebrate it.
Yeah, it says actually the music of the Nintendo 64 uses Dolby surround sound and was converted by Chris Holzbeck. The team reworked the sound set from the ground up to provide each instrument with a higher sample rate than on the PlayStation, thus resulting in higher quality music. Some features from the other enhanced ports based on the DualShock version do not appear in the Nintendo 64 version, such as the Extreme Battle minigame. Because I was reading here about how the controls vary because of the DualShock control. After, let's see, first re-release was the DualShock version, which incorporated support for the vibration and analog control functions of the PlayStation's DualShock controller. Then it says the Nintendo 64 version of Resident Evil 2 differs from most of the other releases, is the first of very few games released for the console to have FMVs despite the limited storage space on the cartridge. Over the course of 12 months and with a budget of $1 million, Resident Evil 2 was ported to the console by a staff of 20 employees. The version offers features that were not included on any other system, such as alternate costumes, the ability to adjust the degree of violence and to change blood color, a randomizer to place items differently during each playthrough, and a more responsive first-person control scheme. Additionally, the port features 16 new in-game documents known as the X-Files, hidden throughout the 4 scenarios. They revealed new information about the series lore and connect the story of Resident Evil 2 to those of the other installments, including some that hadn't even been released yet at the time. So they put a lot of thought into this game when they were porting it over to the Nintendo 64, as far as adding all that extra stuff into it.
I like that a lot. I love little advanced planning things like that. Little Easter eggs.
Yeah, it says other visual enhancements include smoother character animations and sharper perspective corrected textures for the 3D models. See, and that's where I can't really do a comparison between the two. I wish I could, but like I said, I don't have a PlayStation, so I can't really do the comparison. But I do remember back in the 90s playing originally playing it on the PlayStation and then playing it on Nintendo 64. Even at the time, I thought it looked better and played better at the time, but I wish I could do a comparison of the two.
Well, whenever you do eventually get a PlayStation and play the PS version, we could do an episode dedicated on the comparison.
Yeah.
But as far as a number score, what would you give this game? Because it sounds like you would give it pretty high praise.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't finished the game again, this playthrough of this decade. I even still, as playing it as far into it as I have, I mean, I'm going to finish this in the next probably week or so. I'm still going to give it, I'm going to give it a good 8.5 out of 10. I mean,
That's pretty good.
and I think if they could make a remake of this and put it out on like the Switch or PlayStation 4, whatever, and make the controllers, the control of the game a little bit better, I think it gets a higher score because I'm telling you, if you haven't ever played this game or it's been a long time since you played it, go back and really pay attention to the detail that was put into this game. I mean, from the cutscenes that they put into it were pretty high quality CGI for the day, which probably cost a lot of money back then. And then just the environment. I mean, the game is beautiful, even though it's a dirty, grimy city, and there's blood everywhere. I mean, it's still pretty sharp, graphics. I mean, like I said, the character models are still a little bit have that 90s blocky look to them, but the game's so good, you really just kind of look beyond it. And the voice acting's good, mixed with the sound design of this game, the music, and the story of this game. I mean, you just get sucked into it and you just keep playing like, I got to get to the next. It's a lot like Zelda. You're going through and you're doing all these different puzzles, like you're finding pieces that completes the next puzzle, or you got to find a key, complete this puzzle to get a key for a door that's on the other side of the station, things like that. Now, this game is full of stuff like that. And that's what I love about this game. I can't praise it enough. So if you've never played it, give it a chance. Like, this is up there as one of the greatest video games ever made.
I'll definitely have to go and check it out at some point. Like I said, I've never really dabbled into the Resident Evil series that much, but I'll add it to the list.
You definitely should.
Sure.
And do you have a PlayStation?
I don't have a PS1, but I do have a PS2, and the games are backwards compatible. So
yeah, I think you could.
I could get it and play it.
I think you could. It'd be interesting if you picked up a copy of this and were able to play it, and let me know what you thought about it and what you thought about the controls. I definitely want to try to get a PlayStation. And this will be the first game I pick up for the PlayStation, because I do want to do that comparison. Because everybody knows that the Nintendo 64 controller has problems. And you play a game like this where you really need that second analog stick to kind of get it not to be so wonky. But once you get used to it, it's really not that bad. And like I said,
no, I'll definitely look out for it.
It's a very slowly paced game. So if you're looking for a run and gun type of game, this is not the game for you. But if you enjoy games that are kind of slower paced, you get parts of the story, you got to figure out puzzles, if you like searching, like, and finding, you got to get over here to this place, but this helicopter's busted into the building and there's fire everywhere. Well, you got to turn the water on, so you got to go, find, the where how to turn the pump on, but to do that you got to solve this other puzzle. It just kind of builds through the whole game like that, and it's just really, really awesome. And it's got zombies. Who doesn't love zombies?
Yeah, everybody loves zombies.
Yeah, so that's my review. I give it an 8.5 out of 10 if you can find it, whether it's on PlayStation or Nintendo 64. If they do the re-release next year, I am there day one. I will pick it up because this still to this day holds up as probably my favorite video game of all time.
That's really high praise. That's really high praise. But I look forward to playing it whenever I get the chance to.
But I think that's going to do it for this week. Is there anything you wanted to talk about before we get out of here?
Well, if you enjoyed hearing me and Jason talk, you can hear it again on this week's episode of the Derek Diamond Experience when us two and Wally Phelps do a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles roundtable. That was a lot of fun. Ninja Turtles are great. We've talked about some of the games on this show. We get into video games, the cartoon, the movies, anything Turtles related. So definitely check it out because doing the roundtables now have become my favorite part of doing my show. So definitely check it out. That'll be available on all podcast platforms on Thursday.
Fantastic. That was a fun episode to do too.
But other than that, next week we're going to go from zombies to Pokemon. So we're kind of going from one end of the spectrum to the other. I'll be reviewing the surprise cult classic, and I'm going to be very interested to hear your opinion of it. I'll be reviewing Pokemon Snap for the N64.
Sweet.
It has one of the most simple concepts, but it's one of the most addicting games I've ever played. So
I'm interested to hear.
Look forward to talking about that next week.
Awesome. We went to almost an hour for this episode. That's what
we did.
It's episode 50. So enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Like I said, go check out Pop Culture Palette this week. It was a rum-fueled episode. That's why the name of the episode is Rum to the Hills. And so go check that out. But as far as us, let me turn on the music here and get up our stuff here. You can find us at nerdcaveretro.com. You can email us at nerdcaveretro@gmail.com. You can go find us on Instagram and Twitter at NerdCaveRetro, and you can find us individually at JFuntastic, at Derek_Diamond, and we're also on Facebook at facebook.com/NerdCaveRetro. So Derek, tell them what it's all about.
May the way of the hero lead to the Triforce.
You've been listening to a Nerd Cave Network production.
All right, that makes episode 50.
Woo! Good
right,
stuff.
And, thank you for everybody that checked us out or will be checking us out on Twitch, because I will put this up for archiving, and it'll be on YouTube in the next day or so. I think I'm going to do that tonight. But thank you guys, and
yeah, absolutely,
awesome. So we will see you next week right here. So keep an eye out on our Twitter page and stop by and watch us again. Thank you. Bye.